So today we are looking at fractions. Now you will have covered this to varying extents before we broke up for lockdown. However, we should still revisit them. I know a lot of people are still having problems with them. So this week we're just going to take you through basic fractions and hopefully complete all the tasks, and we should get the majority of what you need to know for year 3 covered. So today, composites, we are needing to know what is meant by a numerator and a denominator. You need to know what a fraction is, what a unit fraction is, what a non-unit fraction is, and how to find a fraction of a shape. Now there's quite a lot in there, I know, but most of them are just keywords essentially that we will cover as we go through the learning for today. So numerator, take your time to say that to yourself again. Numerator, denominator, unit fraction, non-unit fraction. And you'll remember that non means not, so essentially a non-unit fraction will be the opposite of whatever a unit fraction is. So as long as you remember what a unit fraction is, then you should be able to remember both of those. So what is a fraction? A fraction is simply a part of a whole. Okay, so that can be a whole number, or it can be a whole quantity or an object. Here I had a whole cake. I divided it into 4 equal sized pieces. And each of those pieces is a fraction of my cake. So I took 1/4, which is a fraction of my cake, away, and I left 3/4 of my cake. And I find cake is the easiest way to think about fractions. This is another way to think about fractions though. Here, instead of your whole thing being a cake, your whole thing is this circle. And again, we've divided it into equal pieces. So here we've divided it into 2 equal pieces, and we've shaded one piece out of 2 pieces because we divided into 2 pieces and one piece is shaded. 1 out of 2 pieces. Okay, and this is called a half. Here we have 3 pieces. We've divided it into 3. Okay, and 1 out of those pieces is shaded, so we have 1/3, and that is the fraction of this shape that is shaded. Here I have divided my circle into 4 equal pieces. 1 of them is shaded, so we have 1 out of 4, and we call this a quarter, which you should remember from year 2. Here I have divided my shape into 5 equal pieces, and 1 out of 5 of those pieces is shaded in. So we have 1/5 represented by this shape. And it's that simple, it carries on the same way. So here out of 6, 1 out of 6, 1/6. Here out of 7, 1 out of 7, 1/7. Here 1 piece is shaded out of 8 pieces, 1 out of 8, 1/8. 1/8. Here we have 1/9 because we've divided our shape into 9 equal pieces. Very important those pieces are equal sized. And here I believe we'll just do a quick count. Pretty sure this will be tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, so we're tenths. We're out of 10. 1 out of 10, which is 1/10. Here we have 1 out of 11, 1/11, and here 1/12. 1 piece out of 12 is coloured in. Now, so we've looked at cake, we've looked at circles. We could also look at this. This is a fraction wall, and here, unfortunately, it doesn't show you the whole, but the whole would be this entire bar, so all the way along. And again, please forgive me for the drawing. It's not easy to do on this, but that would be 1. So imagine that as one unit, and that's your whole. Now if I break it into 2 equal pieces, each of those pieces is 1/2, 1 out of 2 pieces. If I break my whole into 3 pieces, I get thirds, 1 out of 3. If I break my whole into 4 equal pieces, I get 4 quarters. 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. Okay, and we should hopefully be all right with this so far because we should remember it from year 2 if nothing else. Here, fifths. If you divide my whole into 5 equal pieces, we get 5/5. Divide it into 6 pieces and you get 6ths. Divide your whole into 7 pieces and you get 7ths. Divide your whole into 8 pieces and you get 8ths. And what's useful about a fraction wall is that you can see that some of the fractions are actually the same size. So if we have a look here at a half, for instance, this is a half. Again, sorry about my poor drawing skills. A half here, and if you notice, a half is the same size as 2 quarters there. Don't worry too much about that for now, but just to show you that there are, and you can probably see you've got 3/6 there and 4/8 as well, and they are all the same size as a half, but we'll come back to that another time. So, as we've spoken about fractions and defining fractions, a fraction is a portion of a whole quantity or a number. It is a smaller part of that. But fractions with the same denominator are the same size. So here we've divided into 4 pieces out of 4. However, those pieces are here we're divided into 4 pieces. Sorry, I moved on there accidentally. There we are. Out of 4, but these are not 4 equal pieces. When we create a fraction, we share equally, a unit fraction anyway. So if I want to create quarters, my quarters must all be the same size. And think of it as like my cake. If you had a cake, imagine this is a cake if you're looking down on it, and you split it into 4 pieces, the people getting these pieces, get my pointer back on, the people receiving these 2 pieces will not be very pleased because these 2 pieces are much, much bigger. Okay, fractions are, well, quarters or any other fraction will be the same size. So all quarters will be the same size, all thirds will be the same size, all fifths will be the same size, but they're not the same size as each other. So a quarter is not the same size as a half, for instance, but 1 quarter will be the same size. This quarter will be the same size as this quarter. So if I wanted to show 1 quarter of this shape, I would shade in one of my quarters. I've divided it by 4, and there we go. I've shaded in a quarter of my shape. If I want, I can shade in more than 1 quarter, and I can shade in 3 quarters, for instance. And that's very simply, this is 1 quarter, so let's shade 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got 1 quarter there and 3 quarters there. Now, here, where I have 1 quarter, 1 quarter here, we call this a unit fraction because the numerator, the number on top, is 1. This is a non-unit fraction because the number on top is not 1. So let's think about numerators and denominators. They're 2 words we're looking at today, and you've just got to try and remember which way around they go. Essentially, the numerator is the top number in a fraction. The numerator tells you how many parts you have. The denominator is the bottom number in a fraction, and it tells you how many parts your quantity has been divided into. So here I've divided into 3 parts, so I might have divided a cake into 3 parts or a circle, and I have one of those parts. 1 out of 3 parts. My numerator is 1, my denominator is 3. Okay? So once again, numerator tells you how many parts you have, denominator tells you how many parts there are in total. So let's look at identifying a fraction of a shape. And we'll start with unit fractions, which you'll remember are where the numerator is 1. And if you remember, sometimes we talk about units, usually we talk about ones, hundreds, tens and ones, but you can also, and I know all of you have heard, hundreds, tens and units. So units are ones, so that might help you remember that a unit fraction has 1 at the top of it. 1 is the numerator. So here we're trying to find a half. So what I do very simply is I split into 2. I split my shapes into 2. My denominator is 2. That tells me I have 2 parts. And we're going to shade 1 of those parts because that's what it tells me to. That's my numerator. So I've divided into 2. I'm shading 1 of these. 1/2 there. 1/2 there. And 1/2 there. Fairly simple. And again with the third, my numerator is 1, so this is a unit fraction. My denominator is 3, so we've divided into 3 parts and I need to shade 1 of them. So here we have 1, 2, 3 parts, and let's just shade this one. That's a third of that shape. That's a third of that shape. And that's a third of that shape there. Here we have quarters, but we need to have a look at one of these more closely because there's a little bit of a trick question in here. To start off, we'll look at our fraction and we'll work out that this is a unit fraction. The numerator is 1. And I need to shade 1 out of 4 of my pieces. 1 out of 4. So I'll leave this one till last at the end. So we'll do this one first. So that's 1/4 there. And that's 1/4 there. But over here, if I shade one of these, that is not a quarter of my shape. The reason for that is that these pieces are not equally sized. If I want to find a quarter, I need to divide my whole into 4 equal parts. Now, this is not divided into 4 equal parts. So although you've shaded 1 out of 4 pieces, you've not shaded a quarter because you would need to shade 1 out of 4 equal pieces, and these are not equal pieces. Okay? Right, now we're moving on to non-unit fractions. And remember, a non-unit fraction is simply a fraction where, lost my pen. It's simply a fraction where your numerator is not 1. So it can be any number, but the number is not 1. Okay? And here it's saying I have divided my shape into 2 pieces because my denominator is 2. And yes, I have. We can see that these are all divided into 2. And I want to shade 2 of those pieces. So here, 1 piece shaded, 2 pieces shaded, 1 piece shaded, 2 pieces shaded, 1 piece shaded, 2 pieces shaded. And you'll notice here that because the numerator and denominator are the same, shading in those fractions has actually left me to shade in the whole shape. Okay, because if I have 2 out of 2, I actually have my whole 1. And I don't need to worry too much about that if you don't get it at this point, but if you are one of those people who is sitting at home and thinking, oh, that looks like I've shaded a whole 1 in, thought I'd mention that for you. So let's look at a different and more typical non-unit fraction. Here we have 2/3. So my numerator again is 2, my denominator is 3. So that means I've divided into 3 equal parts and I need to shade 2 of them. Okay, so I will shade 1 here and 1 here, and that's 2/3 of a triangle. I can shade this one. It doesn't matter which ones I shade. I could shade this one over at the edge as well, but I'm just going to go next to it here. 2/3 of my rectangle there, and 2/3 of my circle. Nice and simple, very straightforward. 3/4 now. So again, there we go. Sorry, lost my mouse there for a second. So this is 3, that's your numerator, and 4 is your denominator. So I'm looking for a shape that's divided into 4, and I want to shade 3 of those 4 equal pieces. So here I've got 4 equal pieces of the square, and I'm going to shade 1, 2, 3 of them, 3/4, and the same for this circle, 1, 2, 3/4. Perfect. And you don't have to shade in this sort of L shape. You could shade any 3 of them. It wouldn't matter, provided you shaded 3. So we should now know that a numerator is a number, the numerator is the number of the top of the fraction. So the top number in a fraction is the numerator. The denominator is the bottom number in the fraction. The numerator tells you how many pieces of a shape or a quantity you have, how many equal pieces I should say, and the denominator will tell you how many equal pieces that shape or quantity has been divided into. We know that a fraction is a part of a whole shape or number. We know that a unit fraction is a fraction where the numerator, the top number, is 1. We know that a non-unit fraction is a fraction where the numerator is a number that is not 1. And we know that if we can find a fraction of a shape, we know that we need to divide it into equal pieces, and the denominator will tell you how many equal pieces, and then you need to shade in by the numerator. Sorry about that. Okay. There will be a worksheet on this that will be uploaded to DB Primary for you to complete. Have a lovely day. Thank you very much.